Hello, very good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining in. Welcome to India Factoring Chat Show, Factoring One Stop Solution for your global aspirations. Let me tell you about India Factoring first. India Factoring offers working capital solutions through the factoring product aimed at converting your receivables into cash. The company is a subsidiary of a European bank called FimBank PLC Malta and is registered with RBI as an NBFC factor. India Factoring is also AD3 category authorized dealer, and through our global network, we offer one stop shop solutions around receivable finance. So, this is India Factoring for you. I am Gauri Das, and today we are going to talk about how things have changed in post pandemic and how factoring helps businesses. And joining us today is Puneet Singh Bhutani, who is a senior banker and factoring professional. Puneet has close to 20 years of rich and insightful experience in banking with expertise in factoring, trade finance, working capital lending, corporate finance, and structured trade products. During his long career as a seasoned banker, he has been associated with reputed banks like Yes Bank, HDFC Bank, and Axis Bank, and he has successfully managed multiple territories and geographies and businesses. He is with India Factoring for many years and has expanded the business across multiple cities in North India. He is a postgraduate in information technology and holds multiple certifications in international factoring. Please welcome Puneet Singh Bhutani. Hi Puneet, thank you so much for joining in. I'm glad to
Hi
have you
Gauri,
on
thanks for
board.
the introduction.
So, Puneet, you are joining from Delhi and I am from Mumbai. And if you remember, when we were planning for this chat show, we discussed that it's not a very great idea to connect like this. It's always better to have a physical presence and talk. But pandemic has taught these things to us, and we have become its new normal, and we have adapted to these situations, right? So, I would like to understand from you what has been adaptability for you in last 18 months. What has been one thing which you started thinking that it's very difficult to adapt to, but now you are reaping benefits of it? Now you think that it's really great that you adapted to this particular thing.
Thanks, Gauri. So I would not say it would be one, it would be multiple things. It all started, I think, when the first wave came. So people were not used to working from home. I think technology was a big challenge at that point of time. Then it all started reflecting on the employee mental well-being. But as we all know, humans are very good at adapting. So I think it took us around 2 3 months. Technology was at par. People got to know the benefits of working from home. I think productivity was back to normal. So I think it was pretty quick. And from last middle of the last year till now, I think things are great. Business has been booming. So everything back to normal, I think.
Super. So everything back to normal is what I am picking up from what you said. And yes, all of us adapted a lot to the situation in both our personal and professional lives. Businesses changed, everything changed because this 18 months, there was something which we had never imagined and it happened. So let's talk about what changed for business and what has really changed when it comes to working capital finance in India. What are your views on it?
I think one major change which has happened is see, because we as businesses were not used to such events. They never knew how to react to such events because in their lifetime they would have not have such situation. They have seen such situation. I think adaptability of insurance, as we know, in India perspective, is very very limited. The penetration is very very less. There are hardly any people who get their maybe their whole life insured or a term insurance or a medical insurance. So we can't even talk about getting their receivable insured, which is factoring all about. So they have realized that this is an area which is very important, which can make or break them. So the lot of factoring popularity have increased not only in corporates and large corporates, but to a certain extent to SMEs, MSMEs. because they want to concentrate on their core product. They don't want to focus on collecting receivables and maybe having those apprehensions whether they will get paid or not paid. So I think good time for factoring.
Yeah, very well said, Puneet. That in India we don't focus on insurance. You rightly cited the example that whether it is personal or you are talking about receivables, nothing is get insured easily. That's not the mindset. And another thing that I'm picking up from what you said is that people should rely on their core strengths, their core areas, and rest of the things should be left to others to manage. And that's how the
Exactly.
businesses will thrive. Thank you so much, Puneet, for this insight. And I would now like to understand the in current scenario when things are changing and there are challenges with the working capital, how factoring can support here.
So again, Gauri, there is not one aspect, there are multiple aspects. Factoring, as we know, I'll talk about export factoring first. This is a non-collateralized product. We see that there are a lot of challenges in those SMEs, MSMEs. Collateral is a big challenge. So this product is without collateral. Then, as we make this product credit protected, so this is a off-balance sheet product. So this product cannot be counted as debt on your balance sheet. So considering the focus of the government on export, made in India, number of schemes which have been rolled out by the government, so there is a lot of support for export sector as a whole. So with having factoring as a working capital product, I think the future for Indian export is very humongous.
Yeah, rightly said there. The beauty of product is no collateral. It's not on your balance sheet, and you also get support in terms of collections. So that can be a good product, especially in these situations and any point of time. Puneet,
Yeah.
what do you think how macro factors are going to impact businesses in 2022 and beyond?
Across sector, we are seeing humongous demand for products which are made in India. As we all know about US and China thrift, so lot of purchase orders, lot of volumes are being shifted from China to India. I think going forward, India would be the factory for the world. Though it may take time, but then we are already started seeing lot of green shoot, and it is not related to one sector. We are seeing this across sectors, be it auto or a garment or apparel, chemical, engineering, you name any sector, all sector we are seeing this green shoots already there. And with capacity in place, I think next 5 to 10 years, not only two, next 5 to 10 years are for India, and exports will be driven to a very large extent. So a lot of positives which this pandemic has thrown towards India.
Superb. So very well said, Puneet. And Make in India and these green shoots because of different multiple changes in how world economy is working. Things are going to be brighter for exports, especially in India. Now let's talk about purpose. We are all driven by purpose, and the purpose of India factoring is to support businesses so that we can contribute towards building up the nation. So, how do you think India factoring is living up to this purpose?
So I like to throw some light on the process, how we operate. So we are a member of FCI, which is a global body which has a tie-up with around 400 factors, around 90 countries in the world. So what exporters can do is they can maybe get in touch with us through our websites or through our offices, and they can check on lines being available on buyers across world. So once the lines are available on the buyers across world, they can take those new purchase orders, or maybe they can go for enhanced enhanced working capitals from us. As we are different from bank, we don't concentrate more on your last year balance sheets. We concentrate on the transaction aspect. If lines are available and you have purchase orders in hand, you have the capacity, you can go and start getting all those businesses.
Thank you, Puneet, for throwing light on this. And you explained the process, which is very simple. And I'm sure businesses will take benefit of this particular product and simplified processes, and they will thrive. And India factoring will be able to achieve its purpose of nation building. Now let's talk
Correct.
about insurance again. You mentioned about insurance in the beginning. So, what is the difference between credit insurance by ECGC and credit insurance that India Factoring can offer you?
That's a very good question, Gauri. So we need to go to in some technical aspect of this. See, when we talk about ECGC, that is maybe it is a localized in India. When I talk about credit insurance, we have a model which I said that we have tied up with around 400 import factors in 90 countries. So the information they have is very latest update. They can update what is happening in their country at that point of time. They have latest update about those buyers. So once we do those transactions through those import factors, it is very secure in terms of if there are any defaults or even if the buyer is going through some difficult period, the information travel is very fast. So the seller here is continuously updated on the health of the buyer. However, in terms of ECDC, that is not entirely true.
Okay, so there are multiple advantages against ECGC that you mentioned. A very large network, you mentioned about 91 countries. So that can
Yeah.
be a very big boon for exporters, and they should look into getting benefited by this particular product. Now, tell me, Puneet, how this is different from a normal bank finance in a layman's term. How would you explain it so that people can understand how finance from banking is different from what we do in factoring?
So in bank, what happens is you businesses may have a pre-shipment line, post-shipment line, a cash credit line. All would be based on some collateral and some balance sheet due diligence. However, in factoring, though there is due diligence on the balance sheet, but then it is more futuristic. So we would be funding you on a base of a purchase order which you have, a shipment which is going to happen, and on the strength of the buyer. It would not be a seller. So once you have those purchase orders, once the credit insurance is available on the buyer, so things move pretty quick. Here we would not take 3 months for sanctioning a line and disbursement. So things move pretty fast and it would be on a futuristic turnover which you are expecting in a year to come. So having larger lines is not a challenge with factors as compared to a bank.
Okay, so speed is the name of the game here because everyone is looking for speed and people want it to their finances to be received by them very quickly so that they can move forward. And especially when it comes to working capital, the money is choked. So if they don't have more money, they can't produce more. So it's great that in factoring, India Factoring is able to provide them finances required very quickly. Thanks for explaining
Exactly.
that, Puneet. And now I would like to talk about small towns, small exporters from those places who are not in large cities. Because when it comes to large cities, you always have an advantage. Everything is within your reach. But what about those people who are operating from small places? How do you support them?
Yeah, again, I think Gauri, a very right question you have asked. So see, working capital because is very much accessible in large towns because there are multiple financial institutions present. But when we talk about these small centers where most of the export happens, I mean, name few like a Muradabad or a Agra, Meerut, Jaipur, Ludhiana. So these are the towns where most of the export happens in North India. So their awareness level of factoring is very less, and then people are not able to because we can't be present all over. So the awareness level are very less. But through our digital channels like our website or maybe our offices, the lead gets traveled very fast, and we are able to reach those towns, and we are able to fulfill the needs of those businesses which are located in those small towns. So I think last year has been very good. We have been able to get many such success stories from those export centers, export clusters, and we plan to continue to do that.
Superb. So technology has become an enabler not only in our personal lives, but every time, everywhere. And that's what we call it as a globalized world. So it's not only about India and small cities. Now you are within reach with the help of technology and you can get quick solutions from India Factoring. Thank you,
Yeah.
Puneet, for throwing light on this one. And I would like to understand, you spoke about how it is different from banking, the factoring product, but I would like to understand what happens if we somebody takes factoring and how does it impact on bank lines. So what impact does India factoring product from India factoring will have on bank lines?
So there are two, three things which I would like to tell here. See, now Factoring Regulation Act is in place. So as a business, there is no NOC which is required from your working capital banker. Once you get your invoice factored from India Factors, the proceed goes to your main working capital account only. The only aspect which is there is whichever receivable or debtors you give it to India Factoring, you need not show that in your DP statement or maybe in your lines which are there with the working capital. Rest, there is no requirement of seeking a prior approval from a bank if you want to go to factoring. So things have become very, very smooth. Government, even the regulator has been supporting factoring to a very large extent.
Yeah, thanks, Puneet. And you mentioned about this new factoring act. Would you like to throw some light on this for benefit of our audience?
Yeah, so what the government and regulator wants is they want easy access to all SMEs, MSMEs, mid corporates for this working capital, because working capital liquidity is the only thing which is currently required because of the pandemic. The lines are choked and there are multiple orders. Like I said, business has been shifting from maybe China or other countries to India, so demand is high. So once the demand is high, working capital is required. So government wants to focus on productized factoring. So they have come up with the amendments in the act, and they have thrown more NBFCs who can do factoring business in India. So overall, it is very, very positive for a factoring sector in India.
Great. Puneet, are there any minimum or maximum limits when it comes to factoring, export factoring specifically?
In terms of export factoring, yeah, in India factors, the minimum ticket size is close to $500,000, and there are no upper limits for export factoring with India factors. If the lines are available on the buyers across, we can fund as high as 10 million, 15, 20 million. So upper limit, there are no upper limits with us.
Puneet, we spoke a lot about export factoring, but what about domestic businesses? We are a large country and it's a huge market. So there are so many producers who are producing for the country and they are supporting the country. So how does India factoring support domestic producers or manufacturers?
Sure. So domestic business is also equally important as export is. So we are present in India for domestic business also. We do once we do all those debtors which are investment grade debtors, and we fund as high as maybe 80-85% depending upon the transaction in terms of domestic business. So we are open to domestic business as well.
Thank you, Puneet, and loads of excellent insights about factoring. How does it work, and how India factoring can support people. Now, as we started with a personal story, and you talked about what happened when it comes to adaptation in new normal, we would like to close also with a personal message. So, what would be your message to businesses and people who are watching our show?
I think businesses should focus on their core strength, which is the product and maybe the delivery of the product, the service of the product. This aspect of collection, funding, they should all be left to professional companies like India Factoring, because this is our expertise. So I think that should be my message. Any company, any business who is watching or maybe has access to, they should contact us and give all their working capital requirements through us, and ensure that collection, because in collection there are different time frames, different languages, different countries. So we do take care of all those aspects.
Thank you, Puneet. Excellent message. And it's time for hyper specialization and focus. So, one should definitely focus on their core strengths, like you rightly said. And as individuals as well, we utilize multiple services from other individuals or organizations. And likewise, organizations are also utilizing multiple services so that they can remain focused. So, focus is the key, and Puneet has rightly mentioned it. And with this, Puneet, though, like I said in the beginning, that I would love to chat more and more, but it's time for us to close the show. And thank you. Thank you so much for joining and sharing these deep insights about factoring and India factoring. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Gauri. It
Puneet.
was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining in. If you have any more questions, you can write it in the chat box, and we will be coming back and we will be supporting you with the answers. And with this, I am taking your leave. For more information on India Factoring, you can go to India Factoring website, or you can go to our YouTube channel or our LinkedIn page, and you will get loads of insights. Thank you so much for joining in. Signing off. Thank you.